Welcome back to Central Kentucky TV. I'm glad you could join us this evening. And one of the things we like to do is every week on this show is highlight veterans. People who have served in the military throughout many of our branches of the military, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. And we'd like to highlight many of our veterans in our community because we've got some veterans here you simply may either not know about or they've done some great things and one of the things I've learned about veterans is they're not people to go around and spouting out a lot about what they've done. They just do the job and get it over with. And one of these people is a good friend of mine, Mr. Frank Thompson. And Frank, you spent several years with let me get my microphone here with the United States Navy.
Yeah, I was in the Seabees, the United States Navy. The Seabees are the construction arm of the Navy. We build ports, airfields, barracks. Our primary job is actually Marine support. We do all of that stuff.
And you don't always do it in the best parts. I mean, you're not just necessarily in Hawaii or anything else. Where y'all you doing?
Well, I did 1 2-week tour in Hawaii, but most of the time it was Vietnam or Cuba or Rota, Spain. Now, Rota was a nice one. That one's pretty much we worked 6 days a week, and that was what we called our Liberty deal because every third weekend we had 2-day weekend, and every 6th weekend we had a 3-day weekend. So we got up to Malaga, Torremolinos, Sevilla, and all over the sun coast of Spain, and it was a good tour of that. But and then the Vietnam was one of the Seabees were one of the branches of service that never spent exactly. If you were in a battalion, you didn't spend 13 months over there, so you could be going back 4 or 5 times. Mm-hmm. Most people went back 4, and then they rotated them out of the battalions or whatever, so they wouldn't, the laws of probability going up. But it was good. We built a lot of stuff. There's a move afoot right now with the Navy Civil Engineer Corps in their offices in Little Creek is to go out around the world and see what the Seabees have built around the world that is still being used today. Mm-hmm. One of the things we saw, we just completed a American Legion overseas deployment tour to our troops in England, to RAF Mendenhall and Lakenheath, and then we took Mr. Guest over to Normandy. He was World War II, Korean, Vietnam, but he never gone to the East, gone to the Europe. So we took him over to Normandy, and a lot of the stuff that you could see over there that was still there from the wartime, and the Seabees were there. Actually, the Mulberries, the home of the forerunners to the SEALs today were the underwater demolition teams, which were basically started as the Seabee organization. Of course, anytime the Navy had something they didn't know what to do with, they started the Seabees. But yeah, we progressed. We're downsized now, but we're still doing missions across the world. One of the big missions they've done lately is MCB 133 has done the building hospitals in Africa for the Ebola deals. But it was very fun. I had somebody asked me why I retired at 30 years. I said it quit being fun after that. Got to be a political.
Well, you got as high a rank as you could get too, I believe, didn't you?
Yeah, I was an E9. I was Command Master Chief for about 3 years in the battalion, and I could have stayed there, but as the time ran out, it was 30. And a friend of mine and I had already made the statement that we were only going to stay 30 years.
Yeah.
Let the young people have it. Well, I made a lot of friends. Somebody asked one day, "What about Facebook?" I said, "Well, I'm on Facebook. I've got almost 900 friends." I said, "Third of them are Navy Seabee buddies, a third of them are from the Parachute Center, and a third of them from my family and other people I shoot with. So I've got a well-rounded people all around the world that call. So
you can put up some of those Air Force people like me. So I guess.
Oh yeah,
Well, basically, you were, like I said, spending 30 years in the Navy. Has it changed a lot over the last 30 years, or since you got into now?
Oh yeah, the Navy's changed quite a bit. Back in our day, if you go out and got yourself drunk or something, the chief take you out behind the barracks and have a counseling session with you. And he would never show up. Now, if they show up to their ship, they're given a breathalyzer. Uh-huh. And if you get that on your evaluation, you're out of the Navy. Mm. They don't want to do that. The initiation of chiefs is gone. And that was one thing. It was a lot of people didn't want to go through it. But it was one thing that instilled pride and solidarity with your fellow chief petty officers. Anytime you had to run into any chief around the world, you knew what he went through and he knows what you went through, so you could solve the problems right there on the site, and you didn't have to get anybody else involved. But that's the way, and like I said, the whole Navy has changed now. Now it's more of a technical Navy. There was a statement made by the man that was in charge of the civil engineering equipment, which was our construction equipment. He says, where at the time you were in, which is back in the 60s, he said, did you ever think you'd go to war with a laptop computer to be a mechanic? And I said, no, I didn't even know there was laptop computers back then. But now all the vehicles that they have all have computer-controlled engine systems and emissions. And so to be a mechanic today, you got to go with a laptop computer. And in my day, you were waiting to see the mail call for a letter from home. Had a young fellow over to high school on Veterans Day. He says, well, how did you communicate? I said, letters. I said, now they go up. They've got internet on the ships. They got internet everywhere, so they can talk back home. You can Skype, and it's not even like being away from home that much. But like I said, we'd go out. Woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning one day down in Cuba. We hadn't had mail for almost 4 weeks, and when a ship came in with the mail, they woke everybody up to have mail call, and that was interesting.
Well, I know the military service is always difficult at different times. You went through 30 years of good and bad times. Would you trade anything in the world for it?
I had a fellow ask me after I got back from Vietnam. He says he was facing being drafted, and he was going to church with us. And he asked me, he says, "Would you?" He actually thought he was going to run to Canada. I said, "Danny, I want to tell you one thing. I wouldn't have traded for anything in the world." I said, "You're going to go places that you've never seen before." And I said, and I told a friend of mine that just joined about 7 years ago, I told her, I said, you get you a good camera, because you're going to go to places that you ain't never going to get back to. Get back to it, you'll be lucky. But yeah, I enjoyed it. If they'd asked me to stay, I'd have probably stayed. Guy asked me the other day, he says, at the recruiting office, says, you want to come back? I said, only on my terms.
Well, that's one of the things, obviously, we want to encourage young people to think about as a career in the military. But now, after the military is over with, obviously now you're not in the military, but you're a veteran, and you've stayed active as a veteran. Now starting your own American Legion. I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the post that we started, which is the American Legion Nelson County Post 42, is an offshoot of the 121 post here in town. There was an election last year, and the older people in the post wanted it their way. And the younger ones from the Vietnam and the younger ones, we decided that we wanted to continue working with the community, working with our veterans, and working with everybody trying to get things done for the community and do things. We've got a project coming up this spring to restore the flagpole to the Mile Kentucky Home, which is the veteran where our American Legion post here in town have strived to get it up and running. And we have a service officer that is at the National Guard Armory from 10 to noon every Tuesday for service officer work. Any veteran that has a problem or thinks they've got a problem or trying to get benefits, come over and see Mr. Tom Justice, and he'll take care of you. He's got a regular flow coming in and out, because you don't think of it when you leave the military about that ache and pain that you've had that you didn't want to go to sick bay for, but now you should have gone to, so it'd be in your record, because now otherwise you got to try to document that, yes, I was hurt then. But then we've got some projects coming up. We meet over at the Keystone Bingo Center on the first Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock. At 6, we have a dinner, $5 a deal, just so we get the camaraderie and eating. But we've got about 70 members right now, and it's growing very slowly. We took our department commander on our overseas trip with us this past September, and he really enjoyed it.
Well, that's one of the things about veterans is you've got the share of the military years, but for years later you can see, and those service officers, I do have to repeat, are very, very important. I mean, they're trained, they know what they're looking for, and if somebody has a question about whether you qualify for a benefit of some sort, absolutely, you need to talk to those service officers. Talk
to the service officers. They are trained. Well, we have the Department of Kentucky has 2 full-time service officers. Well, we got 1 full-time and 1 part-time paid. They are located, generally their office is up at the Roby Rex VA Center. But they're there, but each post has a service officer. Call the post, or in my particular case, call me, which is 502-468-7443, and I can send you in the right direction. Or we have a Facebook page where the American Legion Nelson County Post 42, we have a Facebook page. So that anybody comes to it, they can message us on there and we can get to them. But my service officer, well, actually I've got two good service officers. One was a former service officer who's our adjutant now. But the more you have in that, we can talk to the kids, or I call them kids. We talk to the troops that come back and the older fellows that didn't know that they had. One of the biggest things that the older veterans have a problem with is hearing. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that every veteran, especially my age, before the earplugs and earmuffs, I went one day to apply for a job at Fort Knox as ammo tester deal. And she gave me a hearing test and she come back and said, "You've been in the military, haven't you?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" She says, "Well, you're deaf in the gunfire range." I said, "Excuse me?" She says, "You at the range where gunfire is, you're deaf." Mm. So when I'm a competitive pistol shooter as well, so that explains why if I don't have my earplug in or my earplugs in, and I have molded in earplugs, that somebody sneaks a shot off, it doesn't hurt me as bad as it should have. Mm. And that's when I found out why. But we do definitely want to get people to get their hearing aids that if they're need them and are authorized to have them, we make every effort to get all the paperwork done to get that.
Well, there's a lot of advantages to joining the American Legion, and I know you're always looking for new recruits. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you, they can, I'm sure you could.
Yeah, we can take care of them. Right? We started out with our 15, our basic 15. We had our temporary charter in August. Last month, we received our permanent charter from the department commander, and we are sitting right now at just about 70 people. People are coming in who want to help the veterans, who want to do stuff for the community, who want to do and one of the things in the community is not, handing out food baskets. We'll do that because that is needed here. But, with projects, I've got a project sitting right now on the ground, waiting, the material's sitting in over elderly lady's house. As soon as the weather breaks, we're going to go over and build her a landing so she can get in and out of the house real easy. She's about 87, 88, mm-hmm. which is the same age as my mother. Of course, my mother doesn't drive anymore, but this lady still drives, still lives in her own house. So her daughter approached Bardstown at home about it, and Miss Vivian at the time asked me if I would do the legwork on it, which I did. So we've got the material sitting on site. Of course, at the minute the material got on site, it started raining. And then it started getting cold. So we're sitting with right there. But that's a project we're hoping to get on to this next week and get up and running.
All right. Well, Chief Frank Thompson, we appreciate you being in here to tell us a little bit about your military career. And before you go, would you still recommend a military career to young people out there right there looking for, a little confused about what they want to do with their life?
Well, yes. Like I said, I've got a friend of mine. She was 37 when she joined. She had a situation. She's got 2 college degrees. She was doing mechanic work, rebuilding blocks and stuff over at Republic Diesel. Mm-hmm. And she approached me about it. I said, "Well, Krista, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I will advise you on some things, but I'll never make the decision for you, so you can make it." I says, "But if you like it, stay. If you don't, then get out." Well, she now has 2 houses. One of them BHA is paying for in Chesapeake, Virginia. And she has her original house, which people wanted her to sell. I said, "Don't sell it in case you don't want to go home.
Yeah.
If you don't want to stay, then you need someplace to live." And then she's going to be a land baron when it gets over with, because every time she sees a property that she thinks she can afford, she buys. She's been at sea. She did 2 tours over she did 1 tour in the Persian Gulf, running escort back and forth, and she's been at the last 2 deployments. They were also doing anti-piracy work off the coast of Somalia.
Okay. Well, pretty well, Chief. I appreciate you being in here. To Frank Thompson being here, I've been retired from the Navy, and now you can find him at Post 42 here in Bardstown, American Legion Post 42. And I'm sure if you want to stop by and see him someday, be tickled to death to walk you through the process.
Yeah,
Chief,
just give me a call or just give me a message on the Facebook page, and we can take care of you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here, and we thank you for tuning in tonight. We'll be back in a few minutes with more community focus right here on Central Kentucky TV, Channel 6. We'll be right back.